How's it going, all you wood nerds, and welcome back. Today's a little bit different than normal. We're not going to be building with wood, we're going to be building with metal, although we'll be using wood as fuel. I'm going to show you how I built this sweet little camping stove for around 25 bucks. Let's check it out. Man, for how small that thing is, it works really well. Let's talk about materials really quick. I'll be listing in the description everything that I used to build this project, as well as tools and even the camera gear that I used to film it if you're interested. But enough with that, let's get to building.
To start off, I suggest you wipe down the metal with rubbing alcohol. This will get rid of any of the oils that are present. This metal is pretty jagged. Before I start working on it, I'm going to use this file to soften up the edges. I'm going to angle the feeding tube, that way the wood naturally slides down into the combustion chamber. I'm going to use a couple blocks and my trusty speed square to mock up the cuts. You can use a pencil or score the metal with a file, that way it doesn't rub off. I use this awesome angle grinder to make the cuts. It works perfectly. I quickly mocked up where I'm going to cut a window out so that the two pieces join together. I made my marks and started cutting. Save the piece that falls out though, we're going to use it here in a second. Use a grinding wheel to flatten any of the edges on the piece that just fell out. Assemble the pieces together and mark the excess that you'll have to trim off of the flat piece. Use the cutoff wheel on the angle grinder to get rid of the excess. It's time to weld. Hook up your ground and tack the feeding tube to the chimney. You need a clean surface for a good bond, so make sure that you scrub down the area well after each weld. Run your welds between each one of the tacks that you already made, all three sides. After welding the feeding tube to the chimney, weld the base plate to the bottom. Measure out a piece of flat stock for the length that you want the cross section for pots and pans to sit on. Cut two of those lengths out of the flat stock. Measure for the center and cut halfway through this so that way we can slide these two together and get across. Cut the flat stock into little squares and cut the little squares diagonally to create triangles. We're going to use these as tabs to mount our legs to. Use the welding magnet on the corner to hold the tabs in place while you weld them. Cut more flat stock to the length that you want your legs to be. I'm using a little extra piece of square tube to mock up the notch that I'm going to cut so they fit flush with the chimney. Using the cutoff wheel, cut a couple notches you just measured for. It may take a couple tries to get this right. Lay the legs down flat on the tabs and weld them on. Because the third leg goes on at a right angle, I welded it on without any tabs. Tack weld your cross in the center so that it doesn't move. Then tack weld the cross to the chimney. I'm not a perfect welder, I'll admit. I used the grinder to grind down any of the ugly welds that I made, as well as any of the sharp parts. I used a piece of cardboard to mock up what'll be a slide that feeds into the feeding tube. I transferred those measurements over to a small sheet of metal and cut it out. I cut a triangle out to allow extra airflow inside the feeding tube. I locked this piece of metal up in a vise and bent it until it fit into the square tubing that I have. Once it fit, I cut a couple slits in it to allow extra airflow. Here's a quick demonstration of how the slide works. It keeps the bundle centered while allowing airflow through either side of the vents. You can push or pull the slide in or out to allow extra airflow in the chamber. With normal designs, if wind hits this cross at the top, it forces air down into the chimney and blows all the heat out through the feeding tube. I added these fins to solve that problem. They block any air that blows in towards the cross, keeping it out of the chimney.
All right, you guys, we did it. Project's done. Good job. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I'll be trying to do videos like this at least once a week. If you have any friends, family, or wood nerds that you know that might like the video, please share. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.